Hi, this is Dee Jackson of remotelyrecordedensembles.com. You've seen them on TV and on YouTube. Now you'd like to have a crack at creating your own virtual orchestra or virtual ensemble video for your group. Well, what's involved? Watch this video for some helpful hints. The audio guide tracks for your project will be all important. This is typically an audio mock-up of the entire arrangement that includes everything that you want to have happen from beginning to end. All of them typically give each player a recording that includes just their individual part with accompaniment so they get a real sense of where they fit in, along with a separate stereo recording of the entire arrangement so that they get a sense of the whole. Guide tracks can be performed into your DAW or digital audio workstation of choice. I use Logic Pro. Exported as audio from your music notation program if you already have a score, or at their simplest, could even simply be an existing recording you plan to use as a direct guide. For those who read music, you'll also need to provide a score and individual parts that exactly matches what's going on in your stereo recording you've provided of the entire arrangement. Also, be sure in both the guide tracks and the parts to include a spot where everyone should clap on beats 1 and 2 before any music occurs. You can use this to line everything up later when you do the video and audio mix. Next, it's time to tell the players what they'll need to do with some clearly expressed instructions. I recommend in my instructions to players that they use 2 devices, one to play back the guide tracks, which they listen to on their headphones so it's not picked up, and the other to record their actual performance using a phone video camera with its built-in microphone. If players have the know-how, they can alternatively record their audio while filming themselves directly into a digital audio workstation program like Pro Tools or Logic Pro or even potentially GarageBand or something like that available for free on the Mac, using better quality mics, and then do a quick sync of the audio back into their phone's video using a free program. On the Mac, I would use a program like iMovie, so everything lines up when they submit the file to you. Your players can then send you the file using a free file transfer service like WeTransfer.com. Once you have all the files sent back to you, you should be aware that a good virtual ensemble video really requires not just a good multi-screen video presentation, but a good corresponding audio mix. Many people will typically combine all of the audio imported into their video program as their mix, which results to me in a mix that often feels muddy and lacks clarity. Better instead, I think, to export the audio from each video first. You can open them in a program like QuickTime and select Export Audio Only, and then import and line up all the audio in an audio editing program like Logic Pro or Pro Tools or again GarageBand, where you can properly mix the sound. How to fully mix audio is perhaps beyond the scope of this quick overview. I recommend, however, doing the free 30-day trial of LinkedIn training and tutorials and searching there. There are a variety of wonderful courses available. Or, of course, you can search YouTube for videos on how to mix audio. But in a nutshell, the overall advantage to mixing the audio separately from the video instead of just mixing it within your video editing program is that by doing the audio mix in a separate DAW, as they say, digital audio workstation, of course, you have easy control over the individual levels of each track. You can mute things when they're not playing, or pan things right or left in the stereo field appropriately. If you have more sophisticated knowledge, you can also apply things like noise reduction, especially with videos whose audio was recorded with its built-in mic, which typically introduces all sorts of potential room noise and other environmental things that have to be removed ideally. Finally, you can optimize the sound of each track to really make it stand out and reduce the elements that you don't need to hear. For example, In Logic, I like to insert an EQ onto each individual track and roll off 60 hertz or below to get rid of extra mud and boom that won't be heard anyway and simply makes the overall mix seem less clear. You can also add things like compression to reduce the disparity between the highs and lows of your individual tracks so that you have more control over their volume in relationship to the entire mix. And then you can add things like reverb to make the entire ensemble feel, of course, like they're in the same room. And then the final touch, I would say, is some stereo bus compression on the stereo output bus, as it's called, the track, of course, in your audio workstation where all of the other tracks are routed to. And this will help to glue the track together and make it nice and full and clear. Now onto your video editing. Once you've bounced your stereo audio file from your digital audio workstation and you have a nice final stereo audio mix, you will import it into your video program of choice. In my case, I love using Final Cut Pro. It's something I recommend, although there's other programs, of course, like Adobe Premiere especially. Final Cut Pro I use in part because in recent years it's really been getting into its own after a rocky start a few years ago when they fundamentally rewrote the entire program. And in fact, since then, there's been a whole aftermarket of robust plugins that you can buy or that you can even get for free that help increase the functionality of the program significantly. There are also plenty of online tutorials for it. I again recommend the free 30-day LinkedIn training and tutorials that you can try out. There's one in there in particular called Final Cut Pro 10 Essential Training by Nick Hauraz. And also there are many free Final Cut Pro in 20-minute tutorials that you can simply search YouTube for to get you the lay of the land. Beyond the basics, once you learn the ins and outs of the program, and in this case I'm talking about Final Cut Pro 10, probably the main element you'll want to know about is how to create split screens, which are such a prominent part of any virtual ensemble video. So let me talk about that just for a second. There are a number of ways of achieving this, from the more time-consuming, doing it by hand, so to speak, to the time-saving using additional split-screen plugins. There's one in particular I love called Splits, which I use all the time to help you. Now, if you do it by hand, you essentially line up the video clips in Final Cut Pro X so that they're synced and arranged horizontally in your timeline. The ones that are higher up in the timeline will technically be sort of in front of the others. So while you'll only see one window or one image initially, in reality, the other ones are simply behind it, going in successive order as you go down on the timeline below the one that is visible. You'll then essentially choose one or more clips, hit this transform button, and then you can actually scale the clip to any size you desire and move it into position. And you'll find with some experimentation, this is a very quick way to just manipulate the size and the scale of your images and move them and place them on the screen any way that you'd really like. As you proceed and get more advanced, you can also explore things like keyframe animation, which is very important if you want to sort of make your video come alive, move elements around on the screen, kind of artistically, hopefully. I, for example, love to try to make what's going on the screen match visually what's going on in the musical arrangement to maintain interest and even to give more clarity to the audio that's going on so people can really follow what's happening. And also just so that the video doesn't really look like a static Zoom video conference, as many people actually think that these videos really are. And of course, the final step is when you're done to export your creation and then upload it to your video site like YouTube or something of choice for all the world to see. I should add that if you need help with any or even all of these different facets of making a virtual ensemble, I definitely want to direct you to my business, Remotely Recorded Ensembles, where I can take care of all of these aspects for you. So please visit remotelyrecordedensembles.com for more information. And thank you very much.